I am proud to welcome John Anderson to Sam's Musical Mystery Tour on CoveFM, the voice of St. Margaret's Bay, Nova Scotia. This man is the voice of Yes, one of the greatest and most influential progressive rock bands in the world. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. How are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm very good.
Cool. Okay, so you've been working on an interactive audiovisual album called John Anderson's Zamran Experience, which is intended to be a sequel to your 1976 solo album, Oleus of Sunhillow. How did this project come into fruition?
Well, my son, Damien, is now 40 years old, 41. He kept saying to me, why don't you do a follow-up to Elias? It's one of the great albums. And I used to say, because I haven't thought of an idea. So about 6, 7 years ago, I started thinking about the project of putting together an idea for it. And it's taken me so long to discover how to do it.
Right.
So it's a question of timing. Timing is everything. I'm always creating music, and it's just a decision to make into what the son of Elias would be. His name is Zamran. What is his purpose? His purpose is to help create the structure of the earth, and that's what the whole idea is about.
Back in 2011, you composed a long-scale composition called Open, a piece that, well, in my mind, anyways, and I think in the case of most Yes fans, it sort of takes us back to your roots with Yes. Tell me about how that project came about, if you would.
I think the idea is that music takes over your whole space of time and everything. And if a piece of music is coming and it's never ending, it should not be limited to a time sequence. So when I started writing Open, I just felt that I could put a structure together musically that would work. And it's not an easy thing to do. I'm actually halfway through my second one of this sequence that I'm doing. And, you think, oh, well, I've done one. I'll probably get into it pretty easily and do it. And I found doing Open was pretty exciting because I had a lot of the songs already in my guitar. And I just put a very simple 18-minute section of songs together and then handed it to a good friend who lives nearby to orchestrate it. And before I knew it, the whole piece took on a life of its own. So it was just an incredible joy to go through that experience. I think it took about 3 weeks here, a couple of weeks there, a month there. And during the course of 3 years ago, I finished it. And it was real fun to do because it really made me feel that I hadn't lost my feeling and love of progressive music in a sense where music is like a journey rather than a song and and then another song and so I still feel very excited to create another extended piece of music, and I probably will do it every now and again. I just know I like doing it.
Yeah, when I listened to it a little while ago, I thought, wow, this is really well put together. Like the orchestrations like really work, and I find with the progressive music that like with some bands, it's kind of like a hit and miss, right? Some bands could do, other bands not quite as well, but a nice try. But this one is really well put together. I quite like it. So actually, one question that's been kind of going around in my mind for a little while. When was the first time that you've heard the term progressive or prog rock used like in a sentence, if you can recall?
I think if you listen to the Beatles' Revolver, there's a song on there called Tomorrow Never Knows.
Yeah.
And there's always been progressive music. It's not like there's something people didn't talk about. But when that album came out and that song was played on the radio, because it is kind of different. It's very sound-wise, just extraordinary. And then you listen to Frank Zappa music, and towards the end of the 60s, you had obviously Sgt. Pepper came along, and it was like this progression of music had really nothing to do with the normality of pop music. So it was like this incredible surge of new styles of music, new kinds of music going through towards the end of the 60s. And obviously, it was always named as progressive rock music, and event rock, which is okay, but I never felt that rock and roll artist so much as a musician So I'd work with Vangelis and do what I thought was very progressive musical ideas, but it had nothing to do with rock and roll. So when people said I was into prog rock, I'd always say, well, not really me. I'm into progressive music.
Yeah, progressive. Yeah, I can see that. Like, because I mean, progressive covers so many different territories and all that other stuff, right? Has
That's true. Yeah, yeah, progressive orchestral music. John Adams is a very progressive musician. Modern jazz, sort of very highly progressive and so. And that's the way life is. There's always a progression. You want to call it anything.
one question I had in mind because this is a question I tend to ask musicians as well, mainly curiosity. Have you ever performed in the Maritime Provinces?
Where are they? Up in Maine?
No, I mean like Nova Scotia or New Brunswick or
No, I would love to. It's just a question of being asked to. I would be there. The nearest we got was up in Maine, and the lobster wasn't that good.
oh, oh, that's too
But the
bad.
show was great. We had a great show.
Oh, that's good. Very good. So what is your favorite Yes album?
Well, they're all part of my life. So I love, of course, the Fragile, Close to the Edge. I love going for the one album, Awaken. I love actually the Yes album, and I love the very early recordings of Yes at the BBC, which were never put together as an album, but you can actually listen to them on the internet. I think on YouTube. You can see us playing at the BBC. Boy, we were an exciting band at that time. And of course, as time went along, 90125 became very famous, but it was an incredibly well produced album. Um, then the next couple of albums were okay. I love Talk as an album idea, and I love the last one that I did with Unification, which I really like.
When you mentioned like the BBC and like the early days and all that matter stuff, it makes me think of the first Yes album, and lately I've been getting into that quite a lot, and it made me think as well. One of the hosts of CoveFM, David Anderson, who hosts the show Aardvark Archives Presents, his show comes on after mine. I guess he's seen you guys live at the Marquee Club in Wardour Street in London in 1969. What are your recollections of the Marquee?
Well, it's quite an amazing time because I used to work in the bar above the Marquee before I started. Yes, I was just in London. I've been in a band for 5 years with my brother and so, but I was there in London trying to make a living looking for a group. So I worked in the bar above the Marquee, and every night people would come from the Marquee, all the musicians, into the bar, and I'd be serving drinks and cleaning up, and I'd see Keith Emerson, Pete Townsend, Jimi Hendrix. All these people were coming in and out of the Marquee Club. It kind of freaked me out. And then when Yes got the chance to play there, it was just an incredible time, of course. And I just, you have to start really somewhere and get some recognition. And the Marquee was the most famous place. It's kind of funny because somebody about a couple of months ago, they sent me an article that I'd spoke about my work with Yes in I think it was 1980, and it was in this Melody Maker, very famous magazine. And somebody sent me a copy of it when I was saying about music and what I was thinking about music, and I thought, gosh, I feel the same way about everything. So I wasn't really out of my brain. But the interesting thing, I turned over the page, and there was an advert for the Marquee, 1980 February, and it was Tuesday night. Second on the bill was a band called U2.
Oh, right on.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's kind of neat to sort of look back. It's almost when you think of like like diaries and stuff like that, like what one's perspective was at a certain back, and
Yeah.
you kind of think to yourself, well, how much has my mind changed since then? And I guess in some stay the same, and well, not I.
Yeah, I think, I have a very strong opinion about much trying to be a rock star or a pop star. I didn't really feel comfortable with that idea. I just felt more comfortable working with very interesting musicians and creating music that we didn't sort of tried before.
Yeah, I know. Like when I listen to you, like your albums with Yes and stuff like that, because I'm a new fan, really. Like I've only discovered your music a little over a year ago now, and I've kind of gotten into like for a while I was into like the late '60s stuff, you know, the Beatles, Beach Boys, the Kinks, and all that matter stuff, and I kind of progressed forward and listened to like early '70s stuff, including the music that you've created with Yes. Who were your biggest influences as a teenager?
Well, you know what? I grew up in the 50s, late 40s, 50s, so I'd listen to, Rogers and Hammerstein movies and musicals, and of course Frank Sinatra, and then eventually got into Buddy Holly and the Everly Brothers. My brother and I used to sing all the Everly Brothers. And then Elvis came, and of course the big change for everybody was the Beatles, because it was like he was a different kind of music and a totally different to the idea that you don't have to go to London and be made into a pop star. You can come from Liverpool, or you can come from Manchester like the Hollies. So that whole period was an amazing. Of the 60s, of course, you had the Motown. I was a big Nina Simone fan. And then, as time moves along, you meet Jimi Hendrix and think, my gosh, who the heck is this guy? And then you
Yeah.
see Led Zeppelin play, and, so many influences over the years. Paul Simon. It's amazing the amount of musicians that singer-songwriters that affected me.
Yeah. Another musician told me one time that in the 50s, sort of one-way traffic from the States, like to the UK when it came to rock and roll, whereas in the 60s it was kind of shifted back, I guess.
Yeah. It's interesting. You're right, because when early '60s, you'd have singers always singing a big hit record from the States, so it was always going to be a hit record, and they'd make these people, Cliff Richards and very famous people in England who starts for 10 minutes.
Every artist has a preference on how they compose their work. With Yes before the lyrics, or did you and the others around the lyrics that were already written?
It was a combination. I was always writing songs in the early days, so I would always bring songs to rehearsal. And then Chris would always be working out ideas with Bill or Peter Banks in the early days, and then Steve Howes. As people came interchanged into the group, there was always this ongoing musical experience going on when I was going to the studio, and I'd fit those ideas into the song, and vice versa. They would fit the song into their idea. So it was a real mishmash of ideas, but always we seemed to know what we were trying to do, and it was very harmonious through that period of time.
What is your favorite instrument?
So I play guitar all the time. I love playing piano. I was playing piano just before. So I'm very interested in composing. That's what I'm interested more and more. As I'm 70. I'm getting into my 70th year now, and I'm still into ideas of composition, like musician, sort of musicals, opera type things, storytelling music. So I'm into large-scale projects in a lot of ways.
Cool stuff. When I look at the Yes albums and I look at the album artworks and stuff like that, I think to myself, well, the artwork in an interesting way, it matches the music perfectly. Like the visuals kind of represent the music rather nicely. My question in terms of that is, how did you guys meet Roger Dean?
Well, he had created an album cover for a band called Offibisa in London, and everybody loved the album cover so much, and we just got in touch with him. He came to our rehearsal, and we became friends. And he showed us some of his artwork, and we just said, well, we're a band. Every band is very fragile, so you have to create a very fragile-looking experience. And he started doing these worlds, and of course, like you said, I always felt that it was part of a session of events. Roger and his brother would come on tour and create beautiful stage designs for us as well. So it was all part of the whole Yes experience.
So, I mean, was becoming a musician something you've dreamed of doing like from day one?
Well, you start in a rock and roll band. I was 18, and I'd been working on a local farm for like 4 years. And with my brother, I was so thankful not to have to work every morning, and just be on the road as a band was just. You never think about that next year. You think about the moment, and as time went along, I just in my heart, I always felt that I had some I wanted to try and write. And then I started playing guitar. I was 3, and that's when I started writing songs. And then from then on, that's when it all started to move forward. And within a couple of years, I in my passport, and I really felt it.
What I usually like to do, actually, when having a rare opportunity like this to talk to a musician, so I kind of like to go. I like to do a run through of like a few records within a group's discography, and what I mean by that, like going through records, like if you have like any funny stories, like from sessions, like say for Close to the Edge, for example, like if you have any uh, really interesting stories to really been mentioned before, I guess, about.
We were making Close to the Edge. Close to the Edge is about 20 minutes long, and we would do it in sections. We couldn't just rehearse 20 minutes of music and then record it in the studio. We had to do it in sections.
Yeah.
And, in those days, everything was tape. So you would use tape to record onto, probably 4-inch tape. And then you would mix that down to a very quarter-inch tape, and that would be the final mix. And then, you'd edit it together. So you would finish up the engineer, Eddie. He would have pieces of tape hanging from the ceiling, long pieces of tape, and they all numbered every one of them so they would stick together, and then he would piece it all together. And one Friday night, we were towards the end of the mixing of it, and we must have had about 40 different pieces of tape. And the cleaning lady came in, and she cleaned and went out, little old lady. And then we got towards the very end, close to the edge. We were going to the big chorus, and we couldn't find the tape. It had fallen off the ceiling, because it was always hanging with some sellotape. It had fallen off the ceiling, and there was some of the other tapes on the floor, but it wasn't there. So we all looked at each other and thought, oh my God, it could be the cleaning lady. She put it in the bin. So we all went outside and took the bin apart, and it was raining, and we found the piece of tape. And we cleaned it, and we put it on the reel and edited it together, and it sounded perfect.
Oh, nice. Wow.
Very frightening moment, believe me.
Yeah, yeah, losing the tapes like that for a while, yeah, that would be quite. That's like probably the most nerve-wracking thing about recording when you think about it. Next album I want to talk about, and when I first heard this album, I was like, holy smokes, because every song is just about 20 minutes long, and each song, well, I mean, of course, I'm referring to Tales from Topographic Ocean. Tell me about how that project came about.
The idea was to create a new piece of music, and you go in with new songs. That was always what we did. But one time, me and Steve were on tour in Japan, and we sat down and we started to put together all these song ideas, and we finished with quite a lot. And then I was reading this book. It's called The Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. It's all about the Ramakrishna truth that all religions are the same and all connected. We are all one on the planet. And the 4 Vedas of understanding were the revealing of life, the remembering of life, the ritual of life, and the ancient of life. And that the idea is you go through these 4 experiences as you grow. The revealing is what you see every day. The remembering is what you, as a child, remember learning. The ancient is all about the unknown. Where do we come from? And the ritual of life is getting on with it, basically. And we are connected to this divine light. That's the whole idea of the Vedas. And more. I'm just paraphrasing now. So the word. And I just said, well, we could put 20 minutes of music on the side of an album, on a vinyl. Why don't we do 4 20-minute pieces? It could be kind of cool, because they'd all be very different. And Steve loved the idea, so we started writing these structures. And we'd written Close to the Edge together, basically. So by the time we got together as a group to rehearse, the guys in the band thought we were a bit crazy, but why not? You may as well try stuff. you got the opportunity, you got a studio to rehearse, and we did, and we recorded, and it took about 4 months, 3 months to finish it. And of course, like anything, it was an incredible challenge to try and make very, very, very different kinds of music. And I've been listening to a lot of electronic music and a lot of ethnic music, what we call world music. And we tried to put that into the whole production. So it was a long, very, very dangerous road. But at least it's like people say, well, why do you climb the mountain? And the answer is because it's there. And that's basically what we did with Topographic.
When I listen to the album, it's like, holy smokes, this is really serious stuff. Like, it's really epic. It has a epic feel, and I mean that's one of the things I like about progressive music in general, especially with Yes, is that I always sense this epic. I know it's kind of vague sounding, but it's kind of like this epic presence and this whole epic feel to things and majestic feel to things. And I always like that very
Yeah,
much.
yeah. Well, what's the idea is, especially when you perform on stage, you want to take people on an incredible journey of music, rather than here's a song, here's another song, la la. And no, you take them on this journey, so it takes a while for it to evolve and get better. And obviously, when we were touring Close to the Edge or Topographic or whatever, Awaken, Gates of Delirium, some of those nights when we performed them on stage in front of 10,000 people, it was an incredible event for us and also for the audience because it was very different.
I've never been to a Yes concert, and well, it's kind of like one of those things where I sort of wish I was alive during those times to see it.
Well,
Because
don't worry, I'm sure it'll happen before long. In the next 2 or 3 years, we'll all get together and do a tour.
that would be so sweet. From listening to your music with Yes and all that matter stuff, it had that much of a moving feeling that I felt that I needed to record my own solo work, and actually I did. I did an album called Obsessions, and I did on iTunes. It's by Sam Meisner. That's me, of course. Do you have any advice for budding progressive rock musicians such as myself? I mean, and anybody that's interested in progressive music.
Well, obviously these days, to put your music out there, people will get it. People will eventually hear it and see it. I think music should be visualized more these days. You got a computer there, you can create your own videos to the music. Even when you play it through iTunes, you got the visualizer there dancing to your music. So always try to visualize the music for the people out there who want to see it as well as hear it. I think that's a good idea. And like anything, you just keep creating music and don't be afraid of crazy ideas. Listening to Jack Tramiel, Jack Tramiel, he's pretty wild. He does. Let me see what he does. He does music for video games, and it's pretty amazing sounds that he creates. It's worth listening.
Well, I'll have to check him out. What's his name? What's his name again? I'm sorry.
Jack Tramiel, Trammell.
Okay, cool.
Just Google him. Google him, check him out. It's wild, what he does. It's very, very surreal, gothic, powerful stuff.
Cool. It seems with progressive rock music, and actually, it's kind of funny because what I would play some of the songs, like some of the Yes songs, and a friend of mine said to me, and he listens to mostly new music, right? Like, so he hasn't really heard of Yes. He said to me, it makes me want to play Final Fantasy because apparently it's interesting with video games, right? Progressive music is very, as you mentioned with him. Progressive music is very alive in video games. So it's interesting how how it went as just being part of just part of the music industry to being part of the video game. It's interesting how that entered that circle as well.
Yeah. I mean, video it's around, and I think it's just a question that video creators are very, very. There's a new one called Journey, and that really explains the future of video games, because video games that are just blood and guts and killing and all that stuff, they're like cops, they're not real, and but there are beautiful, evolving artists that create very beautiful mind expanding video games, and that's the truth of the future. So always good.
Cool. John, it has been a pleasure talking to you today about your experiences with Yes and as a solo artist. On every musical mystery tour, I've made sure to include at least one Yes track in there because in my mind, no show is complete without one. Um, I'm looking forward to the new release
Okay,
of the Zamran experience there. And as long as you're enjoying it, keep producing these wonderful works of art through sound because I know that
thank you.
I'll always be listening for any upcoming material. I mean,
Okay, I wish you well.
and it's a recurring thing in my mind. I know it sounds kind of cliche. It's the recurring theme in my mind is never stop doing what you love, and yeah, that's I say that to any musician really who loves what they do. So never stop doing what you love.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, and take care of yourself.
You too. Thank you for taking the time to be here on the musical mystery tour, and best wishes to you.
Right, bye now. Thank
All
you.
right, all right. Bye bye. Thanks.